small ship screamed through the purple sky of Keth 7, black smoke pouring from its damaged engines. Lieutenant Jake Morrison fought with the controls as warning lights flashed red all around him. His hands gripped the steering wheel tight, while the ship shook like a wild animal trying to break free. "Come on, hold together," Jake whispered to his ship, as if it could hear him. The ground was getting closer fast. He could see strange purple trees and orange rocks below. This was not going to be a soft landing. The ship hit the ground hard. Jake's head snapped forward, and everything went black for a moment. When he woke up, his ears were ringing, and his left arm hurt bad. Smoke filled the small cabin. Had to get out fast. Jake pushed the door open with his good arm. The strange air of Keth 7 hit his face. It smelled like metal and flowers mixed together. He stumbled away from his ship and fell to his knees on the orange dirt. Behind him, his ship made angry hissing sounds as the engines cooled down. He looked around at this new world. 2 suns hung in the purple sky, one yellow and one red. The trees were tall and thin, with purple leaves that moved even though there was no wind. The rocks were all different colors, orange, pink, and blue. It was beautiful, but also scary because he was alone and very far from home. Jake walked back to his ship to see how bad the damage was. What he saw made his heart sink. The main engine was cracked open like a broken egg. The power core was dead. The long-range radio was smashed. Even his emergency beacon was not working. No one would come looking for him on this faraway planet. He sat on a rock and put his head in his hands. He was a soldier, trained to fight and survive, but this was different. He was stuck on an alien world with no way to call for help. His ship was his only hope of getting home, but it looked like it would never fly again. But Jake did not give up. He had been trained to keep fighting even when things looked impossible. He went back inside his ship and made a list of what was broken and what he might be able to fix. The list was long and scary, but he had to start somewhere. For the next 3 days, Jake worked on his ship from morning until night. He took apart broken parts and tried to put them back together. He used wire from one system to fix another system. He even used his belt to hold 2 pieces together when he ran out of proper tools. The work was hard and slow. His hands got cut and dirty. His back hurt from bending over small parts. But every small fix made him feel a little better. Maybe, just maybe, he could make his ship fly again. On the 3rd day, Jake realized he needed special metals to fix the power core. His ship's computer told him these metals could be found in the rocks of this planet, but he would have to dig for them. He took his small digging tool and walked into the canyon near his ship. The canyon was deep and narrow. The walls were made of different colored rocks, stacked on top of each other like a giant rainbow. Jake started digging where his computer said the metals might be. The work was hot and tiring under the 2 suns. He had been digging for about an hour when he heard a sound behind him. It was like metal hitting stone. Jake turned around slowly, his heart beating fast. Something was coming down the canyon wall toward him. At first, Jake thought it was a machine. The thing was huge, at least 8 feet tall, and covered in what looked like green metal armor. It had 4 arms and moved like a giant spider. But as it got closer, Jake saw it was alive. The green covering was skin, not metal. And it had eyes, lots of them, all looking at him. The creature stopped about 20 feet away from Jake. It made a sound like grinding metal. Jake did not know if it was trying to talk or if it was angry. He stood very still and tried not to look scary. He had no weapons except his small digging tool. The creature looked at Jake for a long time. Then it looked at his digging tool, and at the hole he had been making. It made more grinding sounds. Jake thought maybe it was asking what he was doing. Jake pointed at his ship in the distance. Then he pointed at the hole he had been digging. He held up a small piece of metal from his ship and then pointed at the rocks around them. He was trying to show the creature that he needed metals from the rocks to fix his ship. The creature moved closer. Jake's heart was beating so fast, he thought it might jump out of his chest. But the creature did not attack. Instead, it looked at the metal piece Jake was holding. It made softer grinding sounds, almost like it was thinking. Then the creature did something amazing. It reached into a pouch on its side and pulled out a piece of metal that looked just like the one Jake needed. The creature held it out toward Jake. Jake could not believe it. The strange alien creature was trying to help him. He walked slowly toward the creature and reached out his hand. The creature dropped the metal piece into Jake's hand. The metal was warm and felt different from earth metals, but it was exactly what he needed. Jake smiled and nodded his head to show he was thankful. The creature made a sound that might have been like laughing. Then it pointed at Jake's ship and made questioning sounds. Jake realized the creature wanted to see his ship. He nodded and started walking back toward the canyon exit. The creature followed him, its forearms moving in a way that looked almost like dancing. When they reached Jake's ship, the creature walked all around it, looking at every part. It seemed very interested in the repairs Jake had made. Touched the wire Jake had used to connect to systems. It looked at the belt he had used to hold parts together. The creature made excited grinding sounds. Jake watched as the creature examined his work. He realized that this alien was smart. It understood what he was trying to do. Maybe it even understood how clever his simple fixes were. The creature stood up tall and made a series of different sounds. Then it pointed at itself and made a sound like Zara. This was telling Jake its name. Jake pointed at himself and said Jake. The creature repeated Jake, but it sounded like grinding metal when it said it. Zara looked at Jake's ship again, and then at Jake. She made more sounds and gestures. Jake did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Zara was asking if she could help him fix his ship. Jake nodded yes. He had been alone on this strange planet for 3 days, working with no hope of success. Now he had found someone who might be able to help him. Even if Zara was the strangest person he had ever met, she was offering to help, and that was more than he had hoped for. As the two suns began to set, painting the purple sky in shades of gold and red, Jake and Zara stood next to the broken ship. Jake did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time since he had crashed, he felt like he might have a chance of getting home. He looked at Zara, a strange alien creature who had offered to help a stranger from another world. Maybe being stuck on Keth 7 would not be so bad after all. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something amazing. The next morning, Jake woke up to the sound of metal clinking outside his ship. He grabbed his small knife and looked out carefully. Zara was there, but she was not alone. She had brought several strange tools and a bag full of shiny metal pieces. Jake stepped outside and waved at Zara. She made her grinding sound that Jake now thought was her way of saying hello. She pointed at the tools and then at his ship. Jake understood. She had brought things to help him with repairs. Over the next few days, Jake and Zara worked together on the ship. Jake was amazed by how smart Zara was. She understood his repairs, even though they were made with simple earth tools. She showed him better ways to connect wires and how to use the metals from her world. But Jake noticed something strange. Zara's tools were very fancy and high-tech, but she seemed to have trouble using them. She preferred to work with her hands, just like Jake did. When Jake showed her how to bend wire with simple pliers, she made excited sounds. When he used a hammer to shape metal, she watched like she was learning something wonderful. On the 5th day, Jake made a big breakthrough. He figured out how to connect his ship's power system to one of Zara's energy cells. When he flipped the switch, lights came on all over his ship. The computer started working. Even the air cleaner began to hum. Zara made sounds that Jake had never heard before. She jumped up and down on her forelegs. She was so happy that Jake started laughing. He had not laughed since before the crash. That night, Zara did not leave when the suns went down like she usually did. Instead, she sat on a rock near Jake's ship and made slow, careful sounds. Jake's computer had been learning her language, and now it could translate some of her words. Jake, the computer said in its flat voice, the alien is trying to tell you something important about herself? Jake listened as Zara spoke, and the computer translated. What he heard made him very surprised. Zara was not just any alien. She was Princess Zara, daughter of the Emperor of the Kethani Empire, but her people thought she was ugly and strange. They did not like her because she was smaller than other Kethani, and her skin was the wrong color. They also did not like that. She enjoyed working with tools and learning about machines. My father is ashamed of me. The computer translated Zara's words. He sent me away from the palace because I do not look like a proper princess should look. He says I am a disappointment to our family. Jake felt sad for Zara. He knew what it was like to be different. In the human military, he had been made fun of because he was not as big and strong as the other soldiers. But he had proven himself by being smart and good at fixing things. You are not ugly, Jake told Zara. You are different, but different can be good. Zara made a sound that might have been crying. Then she said something that made Jake's computer work hard to translate. She says, the computer announced, that you are the first person who has ever said she is good at something. The next week, Jake and Zara worked together every day. Jake's ship was getting better and better. The engines were almost ready to work again. The power core was stronger than it had ever been. Jake realized that mixing human technology with Kethany technology created something better than either, one alone. But Jake also realized something else. He was starting to like Zara. She was kind and funny and very smart. She brought him food from her world that actually tasted good. She helped him when he got hurt working on the ship. She listened to him talk about Earth and his family. One day, while they were working on the ship's navigation system, Zara asked Jake about human families. She wanted to know how humans chose mates and had children. Jake explained that humans usually fell in love and decided to get married. He told her about his parents and how they had met. He said that human couples had babies when they were ready to take care of them. Zara listened carefully. Then she was quiet for a long time. Finally, she made sounds that made Jake's computer work very hard. The translation is uncertain, the computer said. But she appears to be asking you about the possibility of creating offspring between different species. Jake almost dropped the tool he was holding. What did you say? Zara spoke again, slowly and carefully. This time the computer translated better. She says she has been studying human genetics using her people's technology. She believes that children, born from humans and Kethany, might be very special. They could have the best parts of both species. Jake stared at Zara. Are you asking me to have children with you? Zara made a sound that meant yes. Then she explained more. She said that she had been watching Jake work and was amazed by how, he thought. Humans, she said, were creative in ways that Kethany were not. They could solve problems that Kethany computers could not solve. They could make new things from old parts. My people have great technology, Zara said through the computer. But we have forgotten how to think in new ways. We only do what we have always done. You do things no Kethany would ever think of. Jake felt dizzy. This was the strangest conversation he had ever had. Zara, I don't understand. Why would you want to have children with someone from another? Planet Zara stood up and walked to the edge of the canyon. She pointed up at the stars that were starting to appear in the purple sky. My people rule many worlds, she said. But we are not growing stronger. We are becoming weak because we are afraid to try new things. Children who are part human and part Kethany could change that. It could help my people learn to think like humans do. Jake followed her to the edge of the canyon. But what about me? What would happen to me? Zara turned to look at him. Even though she looked very different from any human, Jake could see kindness in her many eyes. You would be honored among my people, she said. You would be given a place in the royal court. You would be wealthy and safe. Your children would be princes and princesses. Jake sat down on a rock. This was too much to think about. A few weeks ago, he had been fighting in a war light years away from this planet. Now an alien princess was asking him to father her children and live in a palace. I need time to think, Jake said. Zara made a sound that meant she understood. Think as long as you need, she said. But know that I do not ask this just for myself. I ask because I believe humans and Kethany together could make the galaxy a better place. That night, Jake lay in his ship, looking up at the strange stars through his window. His ship was almost ready to fly again. He could leave this planet and go back to the human colonies. He could report what he had learned about the Kethany and go back to his old life as a soldier. But something inside him did not want to leave. Zara had shown him a different way to live. She had made him feel important and useful. She had made him believe that being different was not bad, but special. Jake also thought about what Zara had said about her people. If the Kethany Empire was as big as she said, then humans needed to know about them. Maybe working with Zara could help humans and Kethany become friends instead of enemies. As the night went on, Jake realized that his choice was about more than just himself and Zara. It was about the future of both their species. It was about whether different kinds of people could work together to make something better. When the two suns came up the next morning, Jake still did not know what he would decide. But he knew that whatever he chose would change his life forever. Jake spent 3 days thinking about Zara's offer. He walked around the canyon, worked on his ship, and talked to himself. The ship was almost ready to fly, but he was not ready to leave. On the 4th day, Jake made his decision. He found Zara sitting by a stream near her camp. She had built a small shelter from purple tree branches and strange cloth that changed colors in the sunlight. "Zara," Jake said, "I want to stay here longer. I want to learn more about your people before I decide. Anything." Zara made happy grinding sounds. "You will stay?" "For a while," Jake said. "But I want to understand what life would really be like if I choose to stay forever." Zara jumped up and down on her forelegs. "I will show you everything about Kethany. Life. You will see why I think humans and Kethany can help each other." The next morning, Zara took Jake to see her people's city. They walked for 2 hours through the purple forest until they reached a hill. At the top of the hill, Jake saw something that made him stop breathing. The city was huge and beautiful. Tall buildings made of shiny metal reached up toward the sky. Flying cars moved between the buildings like birds. Gardens with flowers of every color grew on the sides of the buildings. "It looked like something from a dream," Mrs. Kethpram Zara said. "The capital city of our planet." Jake stared at the city. "It's amazing. Your people must be very smart to build this." Zara made a sad sound. "My people are smart, but we are not creative anymore. Everything you see was built long ago. We have not built anything new in many years." They walked down into the city. Jake saw many Kethany walking around, but they all looked the same. They were all tall and had the same color skin. They all walked the same way and wore the same type of clothes. When they saw Zara, they turned away or made disgusted sounds. "They do not like me," Zara explained. "I am too small and the wrong color. They think I am a mistake." Jake felt angry. "They are wrong. You are perfect the way you are." Zara led Jake to a big building with many windows. "This is where our scientists work," she said. "They study how to make our technology better." Inside the building, Jake saw Kethany working at computers and strange machines. But something was wrong. The scientists were not creating new things. They were just copying old designs and making them exactly the same way they had always been. It made Jake watch the scientist trying to fix a broken machine. The scientists kept pushing the same buttons over and over, even though they were not working. Jake wanted to help, but Zara shook her head. "They would not listen to you," she said. "They only do things the way they have always done them." Left the building and walked through the city streets. Jake saw shops and restaurants and schools. Everything was clean and organized, but it was also boring. Nothing was new or different or exciting. "Your people have everything they need," Jake said, "but they are not happy." "That is right," Zara said. "We have forgotten how to be curious. We have forgotten how to try new things." That evening, Zara took Jake to her private workshop. In a cave outside the city, where no one would bother them, inside the cave, Jake saw the most amazing collection of inventions he had ever seen. Zara had built flying machines that were smaller and faster than the ones in the city. She had created tools that could cut through any material. She had even made a machine that could grow food in half the time it normally took. "Did you make all of this?" Jake asked. "Yes," Zara said. "But my people say my inventions are useless. They say I should not waste time making new things." Jake picked up one of Zara's tools. It was beautifully made and worked perfectly. "This is not useless. This is brilliant." Zara made a sound that Jake now knew meant she was happy. "You really think so?" I know so, Jake said. You're an amazing inventor. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Zara worked together in her workshop. Jake showed her techniques he had learned from human engineers. Zara taught Jake how to use Kethany's technology in new ways. Together, they built things that neither of them could have made alone. They created a communication device that could translate any language instantly. They made a medical scanner that could heal wounds in minutes. They even built a small flying ship that was faster and more efficient than anything either of their peoples had ever made. But Jake also learned about the problems in Kethany society. The people were ruled by strict laws that never changed. Everyone had to look the same and act the same. Anyone who was different was pushed away from society. Why do your people live this way? Jake asked one day. Zara thought for a long time before answering. Long ago, we had a great war. Many people died. After the war, our leaders decided that differences between people caused fighting. They made laws to make everyone the same, so there would be no more war. But that is wrong, Jake said. Differences make people strong. When different people work together, they can solve problems that one person alone cannot solve. Zara looked at the inventions they had built together. You are right. Look what we have made by combining our different ideas. Jake realized that Zara was not just asking him to have children with her. She was asking him to help change her entire world. She wanted to show her people that being different was good, not bad. What would happen if we showed these inventions? To your people? Jake asked. They would not believe that we made them, Zara said. They would say it is impossible for someone like me to create such things. Then we need to prove them wrong, Jake said. The next day, Jake and Zara took their communication device to the science building. They found the scientist who had been trying to fix the broken machine. Jake showed him how the device worked. The scientist was amazed. How did you make this? He asked. Princess Zara designed it, Jake said. I just helped her build it. The scientist looked at Zara with surprise. You made this? Zara stood up tall and proud. Yes, I made it using new methods that combine human and Kethany technology. Word about. Their inventions spread quickly through the city. Other scientists came to see what they had built. Some were angry and said it was impossible, but others were curious and wanted to learn how to make such things. Jake and Zara began teaching small groups of young Kethany how to think creatively. They showed them how to look at problems in new ways. Explained that making mistakes was part of learning at first. The young Kethany were scared to try new things. They had been taught all their lives to follow rules and never change anything. But slowly, they began to understand what Jake and Zara were teaching them. One young Kethany, named Crix, built a better way to clean water. Another named Vala created a new type of medicine. Soon, they were all making inventions that their teachers had never imagined. But not everyone was happy about the changes. Some older Kethany complained that the young ones were becoming too wild and dangerous. They said that new ideas would bring back the old wars. Jake began to understand the challenge he and Zara faced. They were not just trying to have children. Together, they were trying to change the way an entire civilization thought about itself. Are you afraid? Zara asked him one evening as they watched the sunset. Jake thought about his old life as a soldier. He had been trained to fight enemies and follow orders. How he was trying to change minds and build bridges between different peoples. Yes, Jake said, but I am also excited. What we are doing here could help both our peoples become better. Zara moved closer to Jake. Do you think our children could really make a difference? Jake looked at her with new understanding. I think they could. Change everything. As the stars came out in the purple sky, Jake realized that his feelings for Zara had grown into something deeper than friendship. He cared about her dreams and wanted to help her succeed. Maybe, just maybe, he was ready to make the biggest decision of his life. Jake woke up to the sound of many flying ships landing near Zara's workshop. He looked outside and saw dozens of Kethany soldiers in golden armor surrounding the cave. Their leader was the biggest Kethany Jake had ever seen, with dark blue skin and silver decorations on his armor. Zara, Jake called out. We have visitors. Zara came running to the cave entrance. When she saw the soldiers, She made a worried, grinding sound. "That is Prince Korex, my cousin. He works for my father, the Emperor." Prince Korex stepped forward and spoke in a loud, commanding voice. Jake's translator device picked up his words. "Princess," Zara Korex said, "your father demands that you and the human come to the palace immediately. The Emperor has heard about your strange activities and wants to see for himself what you have been doing." Zara looked at Jake with worried eyes. "We have no choice," she whispered. "When the Emperor calls, we must go." Jake and Zara were taken to the palace in a large flying ship. The palace was even more amazing than the city. It was built on top of a mountain and was made of white stone that sparkled in the sunlight. Tall towers reached up into the clouds, and gardens full of strange flowers covered every level. Inside the palace, Jake saw hundreds of Kethany nobles wearing fancy clothes and expensive jewelry. They all looked exactly the same, tall, perfectly colored, and beautiful by Kethany standards. When they saw Zara, they whispered to each other and pointed at her with disgust. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Jake could barely see the top. Emperor Thane sat on a golden throne that was 3 times bigger than any chair Jake had ever seen. The Emperor looked like an older version of Prince Korex, but with even more decorations and jewels. "Daughter," the Emperor said in a voice that echoed through the huge room, "you have been causing trouble again." Zara bowed her head. "Father, I have been doing important work. This human has taught me things that could help our empire." "A human?" The Emperor laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "What could a primitive creature from a backward planet possibly teach us?" Jake felt angry, but he knew he had to be careful. He was surrounded by hundreds of aliens who could easily hurt him if they wanted to. "Your Majesty," Jake said, trying to sound respectful, "I have been working with Princess Zara to combine human and Kethany technology. We have created inventions that could benefit your people." The Emperor looked at Jake like he was a strange bug. "Show me these inventions." Zara and Jake demonstrated their communication device and medical scanner. The Emperor's scientists examined the inventions and whispered among themselves. Jake could see that they were impressed, but they did not want to admit it. "These devices are interesting," the Emperor said slowly, "but they prove nothing. Anyone can build machines if they have enough time and resources." Prince Korex stepped forward. "Uncle, I believe these inventions are dangerous. They show that Princess Zara is not following our traditional ways. And this human is encouraging her to break our laws." "What laws have we broken?" Smiled in a way that made Jake nervous. "The law that says no one can mate with someone from another species without proving they are worthy. The law that says outsiders must prove their value to the Empire before they can marry into the royal family." Jake felt his heart sink. "I did not know there were such laws." "Ignorance is not an excuse," Korex said. "But do not worry, human. Our laws are fair. You will be given a chance to prove yourself." The Emperor nodded. "Yes, the old trials. You can pass 3 tests. You may marry my daughter. If you fail, you will be sent away from our empire forever." Jake looked at Zara. She was making worried sounds, but she also looked determined. "I accept the challenge," Jake said. The first test was combat. Jake had to fight 3 Kethany warriors at the same time. The warriors were bigger and stronger than Jake, and they had 4 arms each, while he only had 2. The crowd of nobles gathered around the fighting ring, expecting to see Jake lose quickly, but Jake had learned something important during his time with Zara. He did not have to fight like a Kethany. He could fight like a human when the first warrior charged at him. Jake rolled to the side and used the warrior's own momentum to throw him into the second warrior. While those 2 were tangled up, Jake grabbed a chain from the wall and used it to trip the third warrior. The crowd was shocked. They had never seen anyone fight this way before. Jake did not try to be stronger than his opponents. Instead, he was smarter and faster. Jake won the fight by using each warrior's strength against the others. When it was over, even Prince Korex looked impressed. "The human fights like a coward," one noble said. "The human fights like a winner," another noble replied. The second test was about intelligence. Jake had to solve a problem that had troubled the Empire for many years. Enemy ships had been attacking Kethany, vessels using a special weapon that went right through their shields. Jake was given one day to find a solution. He worked with Zara in a special room filled with computers and testing equipment. The problem was difficult, but Jake approached it the way he had learned to approach all problems, by thinking differently. "Your people try to make shields stronger," Jake told Zara. "What if we made shields that moved instead?" Jake's solution was to create shields that changed their frequency constantly. Instead of trying to block the enemy weapon, the shields would confuse it by never staying the same for more than a few seconds. When Jake presented his solution to the Emperor's scientists, they tested it immediately. The new shields worked perfectly. The enemy weapon could not lock onto them. "This is brilliant," one scientist said. "Why did we never think of this?" "Because you always think about making things stronger," Jake said. "Sometimes it is better to make things smarter." The third test was the hardest. Jake had to settle a dispute between two powerful noble families who had been fighting for hundreds of years. The families owned neighboring planets and could not agree on who controlled the space routes between them. Jake listened to both families argue for hours. They shouted at each other and threatened war. Jake realized that they were so angry they could not see any solution except fighting. "What if you both won?" Jake asked. The families stopped arguing and looked at him with confusion. "You are fighting over who controls the trade routes," Jake said. "But what if you controlled them together? You could both make money and both be powerful." Jake explained his idea. Instead of one family controlling the routes, they could create a partnership. Each family would control different parts of the routes, and they would share the profits. They would also share the responsibility of protecting the routes from pirates and enemies. At first, both families said the idea was impossible. They had been enemies for too long. But Jake showed them how much money they could make by working together instead of fighting. He also showed them how much stronger they would be if they combined their fleets. After many hours of discussion, both families agreed to try Jake's plan. The crowd of nobles was amazed. No one had ever solved this problem before. Emperor Thane stood up from his throne. "Human, you have passed all 3 tests. You have proven that you are worthy to marry my daughter." The crowd cheered, but Jake could see that not everyone was happy. Prince Corex looked angry, and some of the older nobles were whispering among themselves. However, the Emperor continued. "Winning the right to marry Princess Zara is only the beginning. You must now prove that you can be useful to the Empire." Jake bowed to the Emperor. "I will do whatever you ask, Your Majesty. You will become my advisor," the Emperor said. "You will help me find new ways to strengthen our empire. You will help Princess Zara teach our people these new methods of thinking." Jake felt excited and scared at the same time. He had won the right to marry Zara, but now he had to help change an entire civilization. It was the biggest challenge he had ever faced, but he was ready for it. As the crowd dispersed, Zara came to Jake's side. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. Jake looked at her and smiled. "With you helping me, I think I can do anything." As they walked out of the throne room, Jake noticed Prince Corex watching them with angry eyes. Jake had won this battle, but he had a feeling that the war was just beginning. 3 months after passing the trials, Jake stood in the most beautiful garden in the palace. He was wearing formal Kethani clothes that had been made specially for him. The clothes were uncomfortable, but today was special. Today, he was going to marry Princess Zara. The wedding ceremony was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Hundreds of Kethani nobles sat in crystal chairs under the purple sky. Strange music played from instruments that floated in the air. Flowers that changed colors with the music grew up from the ground as the ceremony began. Emperor Thane performed the wedding himself. He spoke ancient words in the old Kethani language, while Jake and Zara held hands. When the Emperor finished speaking, Jake and Zara were officially married. But as the crowd cheered, Jake noticed that not everyone looked happy. Prince Corex and some older nobles sat in the back with angry faces. Jake knew they were still against the marriage and everything it represented. After the ceremony, there was a great feast in the palace. Jake tried foods from dozens of different planets in the Kethani Empire. Some tasted strange, but others were delicious. Ow da da. Zara stayed by his side, translating when other nobles spoke to him. Many of my people are curious about humans now, Zara. Told Jake they want to know if all humans are as clever as you. Some are cleverer, Jake said with a smile. You should meet my sister Lucy. She could build a spaceship from spare parts. During the feast, a message arrived that changed everything. A ship from the human colonies had entered Kethany's space. The ship was carrying ambassadors who wanted to talk about peace between humans and Kethany. Emperor Thane looked worried. I did not know that humans had found our empire, he said to Jake. We are explorers, Jake explained. When one of our ships does not come home, we send others to look for it. They probably followed the trail of my crashed ship. The Emperor thought for a long time. What should I do? Should I welcome these human ambassadors or send them away? Jake saw this as a great opportunity. Your Majesty, you should welcome them. This could be the beginning of friendship between our peoples. 3 days later, the human ship landed at the palace. Jake was amazed to see people from his own world again. The lead ambassador was Captain Lisa Brown, a smart woman who had been trained in alien diplomacy. Lieutenant Morrison, Captain Brown said when she saw Jake. We have been looking for you for months. When your ship disappeared, we feared the worst. Jake explained everything that had happened to him. He told Captain Brown about crashing on Ket 7, meeting Zara, and learning about Ketsani technology. Also told her about the marriage and his new job as advisor to the Emperor. Captain Brown was shocked. You married an alien princess and became part of their government. It is more complicated than that, Jake said. I am trying to help both our peoples learn from each other. The peace talks between humans and Kethany lasted for 2 weeks. Jake served as translator and mediator, helping both sides understand each other. It was difficult work because the two species thought about things very differently. Humans were curious and asked many questions about everything. Kethany were formal and liked to follow strict rules. Humans made decisions quickly by talking about ideas. Kethany made decisions slowly by consulting old laws and traditions. But Jake found ways to help them work together. He showed the humans how to be more respectful of Kethany's customs. He showed the Kethani how human curiosity could lead to beneficial discoveries. The breakthrough came when Jake suggested a joint project. Both species would work together to build a new type of spaceship that combined human creativity with Kethany technology. The ship would be faster and safer than anything either species had built alone. This is exactly what I hoped would happen, Zara told Jake privately. We're proving that different peoples can create wonderful things when they work together. Peace treaty was signed in the same garden where Jake and Zara had been married. Both species agreed to share knowledge and trade with each other. They also agreed to work together to explore new parts of the galaxy. But the most important part of the treaty was about the future. Human and Kethany scientists would work together on new projects. Young people from both species would study at each other's schools, and Jake and Zara would lead a new organization to help other species learn to cooperate. After the humans left to return to their colonies, Jake and Zara began their new work. They traveled to different planets in the Kethany Empire, teaching people how to think creatively and solve problems in new ways. Some planets welcomed them with excitement. Young Kethani were eager to learn human methods of innovation. They built new inventions and started businesses that had never existed before. Other planets were resistant to change. Older Kethany said that the old ways were better and that new ideas were dangerous. But Jake and Zara were patient. They showed these people that change could make life better, not worse. The biggest success came on a planet called Vex-9. The people there had been struggling with a disease that their traditional medicine could not cure. Jake and Zara worked with local doctors to combine human medical knowledge with Kethany technology. They created a new treatment that saved thousands of lives. See, Zara told the grateful people of Vex-9. This is what happens when different kinds of knowledge work together. News of their successes spread throughout the galaxy. Other alien species began to contact the Kethany Empire, asking to learn about human-Kethany cooperation. Species that had been enemies for centuries began to talk about peace. Jake often thought about how much his life had changed. A year ago, He had been a simple soldier fighting in a war he did not fully understand. Now he was helping to bring peace to the entire galaxy. But the most amazing change was in his relationship with Zara. What had started as a strange proposal from an alien princess had grown into true love. They understood each other perfectly and worked together like two parts of the same machine. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset on a planet they were visiting, Zara brought up the subject they had been avoiding. "Jake," she said, "do you think we are ready to have children now?" Jake looked at his wife. Over the months, he had stopped seeing her as strange or alien. Now he saw her as the most beautiful and intelligent person he had ever known. "I think the galaxy is ready for our children," Jake said. "They will grow up in a universe where different species work together instead of fighting." Zara made her happy grinding sound. "Our children will be bridges between worlds," she said. "They will help species understand each other." 6 months later, Zara told Jake that she was going to have a baby. The news spread quickly through both human and Kethany space. Everyone was curious about what the first human Kethany child would be like. "Are you nervous?" Zara asked Jake as they prepared for the baby's arrival. "A little," Jake admitted. "But I am mostly excited. Our child will be the first of a new kind of person, someone who belongs to both species and can help them stay friends." Their daughter was born. She was beautiful in a way that neither species had ever seen before. She had some features that looked human and others that looked Kethany, but more importantly, she had bright, curious eyes that seemed to look at the world with wonder. They named her Hope, because that was what she represented for the future. As Jake held his daughter for the first time, he thought about the crashed ship that had brought him to this planet. That accident had seemed like a disaster, but it had led to the most important discoveries of his life. He had learned that being different was not something to fear, but something to celebrate. He had learned that two people from completely different worlds could love each other and build something beautiful together. And he had learned that the future of the galaxy depended on different species working together instead of fighting. Jake looked at Zara and their new daughter, then up at the stars in the purple sky. Somewhere out there, other species were watching and learning from what they had accomplished. The ugly alien princess and the crashed human soldier had become symbols of hope for the entire galaxy. The future was bright. It belonged to everyone.